Hello everyone, and welcome to another video of the Star Wars Bros. And today we are going to be discussing the Rise of Skywalker. Also, this will be a spoiler review, so if any of you have not seen the movie yet, go watch it. It is better than The Last Jedi, I assure you. And yeah, for those of you who have seen the film, enjoy the video. Now, going into this movie, I was a little disappointed because before I watched the film, I wasn't able to make as many videos about all the theories I had for the movie, but none of those theories were true, so I'm kind of glad I didn't end up making any videos about them. So the movie starts off by telling us that Emperor Palpatine sent out a mysterious message to the whole galaxy, and we then see Kylo Ren trying to find where Emperor Palpatine is because he thinks that Palpatine could be a potential threat to Ren's power. So he basically murders a whole village, and he finds this Sith holocron thing. It's not really a Sith holocron, it's more like a map to Emperor Palpatine's location, but it looks a lot like a Sith holocron, so maybe somehow Sith holocrons and the map object he found are somehow related in a way. So anyways, he ends up finding Palpatine, and Palpatine quotes this line from Revenge of the Sith.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
And then, Palpatine goes on to tell Kylo Ren that he created Snoke, which is kind of interesting because I'm sure that if J.J. Abrams had directed all 3 movies in the trilogy, then I'm sure that Snoke would have had a bigger role in the movie than just dying in episode 8, because Rian Johnson directed episode 8. But anyways, I'm glad how the movie kind of explained Snoke's purpose in the whole trilogy. Palpatine goes on to tell Kylo Ren that he should join Palpatine, and then Palpatine would give him this, big, huge fleet that Palpatine somehow made. Anyways, then the movie goes on to show Finn, Poe, and Chewie, and they find out about this First Order spy who is there, and then the First Order shows up, and Poe escapes from them using hyperspace jumping, which is basically where you keep jumping through hyperspace, then you end up in a ton of different areas. However, the whole hyperspace jumping thing doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, and I might explain exactly what hyperspace jumping is in a different video. Anyways, after Poe escapes, we see Rey training, and it's really fun to see Rey training because it makes her seem a little less like a Mary Sue who can just do everything. She needs training herself, and it's a nice way to see her using her powers while she's training. Then Poe, Finn, and Chewbacca return to the new Resistance base, and at this point they know about Emperor Palpatine's message he sent out. Then Rey decides to take them with her on a mission to try to figure out where Palpatine is. Then they go to this desert planet, and they meet Lando, which is really awesome. But then the First Order finds their location. Then they have to escape quickly. But while they're escaping, they come across a certain ship, and it turns out that that ship actually might have some information on Palpatine's location. So they go there. So then they find this dagger that is written in some Sith language, and C-3PO can translate it for them, but at the same time he can't because it's against his programming. Yeah, then they immediately decide to brainwash C-3PO, which is kind of rushing into things if you ask me. But then Chewbacca gets captured by some First Order stormtroopers, and they put him on this transport and start to fly away. But then Rey reaches out with the Force and tries to pull the transport back to them Unfortunately, Kylo Ren is there too, and he tries to pull the transport to him. So for a while, Rey and Kylo Ren are trying to get the transport to themselves, but eventually Rey gets a little too desperate and she releases like lightning out of her fingertips, and it completely destroys the transport, and she gets all depressed because Chewbacca was supposed to be in that transport. Then we go to Kijimi, where we meet this cute little alien guy named Babu Frick, and he can reprogram C-3PO, so that's what he does. And let me tell you, Babu Frick is the cutest thing that has ever stepped foot on this entire sequel trilogy. I mean, like, he's not the cutest thing ever, because Baby Yoda is Baby Yoda, but I mean, he's still the cutest thing that has ever been in the movies. So then after he's reprogrammed, C-3PO tells Finn, Rey, and Chewie that there is a map on Endor in the wreckage of the Death Star, and that map leads directly to Palpatine. And the map is basically the same one that Kylo Ren had at the beginning of the movie. Then things really start to get interesting when Rey senses Chewie on Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer, which is conveniently right above them. And then Rey goes up to the Star Destroyer to save Chewie, but while she's doing that, she also goes ahead and grabs the dagger that they found, which was apparently with Chewie when he got captured, so it was brought with him onto Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer. And then Rey meets Kylo Ren, but not in person. You see, that whole like mind bridge thing that Snoke apparently set up between Kylo Ren and Rey, that's still intact. So while Rey is on Kylo Ren's Star Destroyer getting the dagger, Kylo Ren, who is on the ground, sees her, and he tells Rey that there is more to her past than she knows. And then he goes up to the Star Destroyer to tell her exactly what he means by that. So Rey and Kylo Ren meet on the Star Destroyer, and Kylo Ren tells Rey, hey look, you are the daughter of Palpatine. It was a very shocking moment in the theater for everyone, and it just came completely out of the blue. Kylo Ren went up to Rey, you're a Palpatine, basically. And it was bonkers. I mean, especially after what we got in The Last Jedi, where Kylo Ren flat out told Rey that her history doesn't matter. Well, J.J. Abrams is completely debunking that and saying, hey, guess what? She's a Palpatine. Boom. Her Mary Sue-ness, I guess you could say, has been explained. And yeah, I kind of like how she's the daughter of Palpatine. It really does explain where she gets all of those natural powers from. Anyway, she jumps on the Falcon, flies away from Kylo Ren, and then they set course for Endor, because that's where that map thing I mentioned earlier was. So yeah, they're flying over there, and while they're flying, their ship gets damaged, so that leads to a pretty rough landing. So after they land, they find the Death Star wreckage, but unfortunately it is in this huge ocean, and the waves don't seem too friendly. Luckily, however, they meet an ex-stormtrooper, and she says she can help them get across the ocean to the Death Star the next day. Now, Rey does not take this news too great, because she wants to get to the Death Star as fast as humanly possible. So she steals one of the stormtroopers' water skippers, and she goes through all the gigantic mountain-sized waves, and she eventually ends up inside the Death Star. But while she's looking for the map, she has a vision of herself, and she sees herself with like a red lightsaber and like, I want to say yellow eyes. Like, it's freaky. But then eventually she finds the what do you call it, map, compass thing. However, Kylo Ren is at the Death Star too, so he grabs the map and he crushes it. So Rey does not take that too well, and they have this awesome lightsaber duel that goes on for a while. And it's really awesome because they're fighting on the Death Star wreckage and there's waves everywhere. However, while this is happening, Princess Leia is reaching out with the Force to try to contact Kylo Ren and try to turn him to the light, basically. So while Rey and Kylo Ren are dueling, Kylo Ren hesitates because he hears Princess Leia's voice through the Force, and then Rey stabs him while he was hesitating. But then Princess Leia used so much Force energy that it killed her, and then Rey and Kylo Ren have this sad moment where they have an understanding between each other because Princess Leia was an important figure to both of them. So it is both very devastating to them when they find out that Princess Leia used the last of her living energy to contact Kylo Ren and try to turn him to the light side. So then Rey heals Kylo Ren's wound she gave him when, she stabbed him. And she just walks off. And at this point, the Millennium Falcon is fixed. So it goes down and picks her up. And then Kylo Ren has a vision where he sees Han Solo. And there's this really awesome moment where Kylo Ren sees Han Solo and they basically reenact the scene in The Force Awakens where Han Solo is trying to turn Kylo Ren to the light side, then Kylo Ren eventually kills him. However, this time around, Kylo Ren ends up, instead of stabbing Han Solo, he throws his lightsaber all the way out into the ocean, and he basically commits himself to the good guys, basically. And it's this really awesome moment, and yeah. Then Finn, Poe, and Chewie, regather at the New Resistance base. However, Rey left to do her own thing. She went to the same island Luke abandoned himself on in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. So now she's there and she's locking herself away. She doesn't want to see anyone else. Basically what Luke did, because she's scared that she might become a Sith. So while she's burning her only way off that rock, she sees Luke Skywalker's ghost, and he comes in there and knocks some sense into her and says, hey, I was wrong to hide here, and you need to go out now and save the galaxy, basically. And then Luke Skywalker lifts his X-Wing out of the water for Rey, which is really cool because it kind of shows how far Luke has come. Because in The Empire Strikes Back, remember, Luke couldn't lift up the X-Wing. But by the time we get to the Rise of Skywalker, we see him lifting it up out of the water. And then Rey finds another map thing to Palpatine's location because there were two made and Kylo Ren had the other one, and it was in his ship, which was the same ship Rey used to go to the island. So she gets the map, but then before she leaves, Luke has something he wants to show her. So he gets out Princess Leia's lightsaber, which is really interesting because before that moment we never had any idea that Luke was training her to be a Jedi. And then Luke says to Rey that Princess Leia would have wanted Rey to have it because she handed it to Luke in hopes that one day someone would find it and, restore peace to the galaxy, that kind of thing. So yeah, Rey goes and she gets in Luke's old X-Wing and she flies over to Palpatine, and then she sends a message to the Resistance that basically says, hey, follow me because I'm going to where Palpatine is, so I need your help, come with me. And then so the Resistance goes and they follow her to the place where Palpatine is, I forgot its name. And then the Resistance goes over and tries to stop Palpatine's new Star Destroyer fleet. So while they're doing that, Rey goes down and confronts Palpatine, and it's really scary kind of. And Palpatine says he wants Rey to kill him so that when Rey kills Palpatine, Palpatine would transcend his consciousness into her, which is kind of interesting. And then he goes on to say that all the Sith live in him. I don't know if he means that literally, all the Sith are literally in him, or if he just means metaphorically, I am like the result of all of their doings, I guess. But then meanwhile, Kylo Ren pulls down in a TIE fighter, and he runs over and tries to save Rey. So he's running over to Rey in hopes that he might save her. But while he's running, he encounters the Knights of Ren, and Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren have this big fight, and it's really cool. However, throughout the whole fight between Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren, it is clear that the Knights of Ren are winning because Kylo Ren does not have his lightsaber with him. Remember, he threw it in the ocean. But luckily, Rey remembered that she and Kylo Ren have this mind bond thing I mentioned earlier. So she hands her lightsaber to Kylo Ren, even though he's like a mile away, and it helps him defeat the Knights of Ren. And then he runs over to help Rey, but then Palpatine just completely like obliterates them, and he does this weird thing where he absorbs Kylo Ren and Rey's life force, like some kind of Dementor or something, and then he becomes younger and more powerful. And I do not know how that works, but it is kind of a random force ability if you ask me. Anyways, while this is all happening, the Resistance is totally getting their butt kicked by the huge Star Destroyer fleet, and they're just completely like pounding on them. And the Resistance is basically giving up hope at this point because Lando was supposed to go out and like tell anyone who's listening, like, hey, go over here, we need your help. Palpatine, if you don't help us, then Palpatine's just gonna reign over the galaxy. But nobody is coming. So the Resistance is really starting to worry. They're getting completely obliterated by the Star Destroyers, and Palpatine is like killing Rey and Kylo Ren. But when all hope is lost, a huge group of ships come in, and apparently Lando followed through on what he was supposed to do, and he got a huge legion of people to help and fight off Palpatine's fleet. And it's this really cool moment, and all the ships are going down to fight the Star Destroyers. But then Palpatine does another really weird force ability where he zaps up into the sky with lightning, and his lightning like goes out and destroys all of the Resistance ships, but at the same time leaves the Star Destroyers unharmed. And then apparently Kylo Ren isn't dead, and he gets up to fight Palpatine, but Palpatine just like forces him off into a deep trench. But then Rey also isn't dead, and she looks up into the night sky and asks for the guidance of all the Jedi that came before. Then we get this really cool moment where she's like looking up into the sky, and it's like you see the entire night sky, and it's beautiful, and there's all these stars, and then you hear the voices of a ton of different Jedi all calling out to Rey and telling her, you know, basically giving her a motivational speech, and they're all like, you can do it, like, you've never been alone, that kind of thing. It does raise the question, though, how exactly are they talking to her? Because I thought the ability of being able to communicate to people in the mortal life was just restricted to Qui-Gon Jinn, Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. But apparently other Force users like Mace Windu and even Ahsoka Tano have the ability to communicate with the living as well. But anyways, once the Jedi are done talking to her, she has the strength to come up and face Palpatine. But then he zaps Rey with his Force lightning, and he clearly thinks he can finish her off easily. But then Rey uses Luke Skywalker's lightsaber to deflect the blast of lightning and slowly march toward Palpatine. Right before she reaches him, she forces Princess Leia's lightsaber to her as well, and then all the lightning that Palpatine was zapping onto Rey gets deflected back onto him, and Palpatine's face like melts off. And then Rey just dies on the spot. Luckily, Kylo Ren still isn't dead after falling for who knows how long, and he gets up out of that trench that Palpatine forced him into and heals Rey. And then Rey is able to come back alive, but then Kylo Ren dies. Of course, not after kissing Rey. But anyways, after that, the Resistance ships finish off the Star Destroyers, and everyone gathers back at the new Resistance base, and then they have a happy party after winning over the Emperor. It's kind of like the party they had in The Return of the Jedi, except a little different, obviously. So anyways, after that, Rey goes back to Tatooine to revisit Luke's old home, and I just need to say, it's a really cool scene, and she's just like going around the area and like looking at all the stuff that was in episode 4, and it's just so cool to show Luke's old home in A New Hope being shown in The Rise of Skywalker. After searching around a little bit, Rey buries Luke's and Leia's lightsaber in the sand, and then she pulls out this new lightsaber she got that looks like it was made from her old staff, and then she ignites it, and the blade is yellow. Now the blade is particularly interesting to me because a yellow blade is the sign of a Jedi Temple guard, so Rey clearly isn't going to live the rest of her life as a guard, but I think the yellow lightsaber is just supposed to show how Rey is going to be different from the rest of the Jedi. And then Rey meets this old lady at Luke's old home. Then the lady asks Rey what she's doing there and who Rey is. Then Rey looks out into the distance and sees Luke's and Leia's ghost. Then she turns back to the lady and replies with, "I'm Rey Skywalker." And then she goes off into the distance with BB-8, and they look out into the sunset, and then the movie ends. So yeah, I think it was a pretty good movie, at least for what J.J. Abrams had to work with. The ending of the movie was a pretty good way to wrap up the whole sequel trilogy. I don't know if it was the best way to finish the Skywalker saga as a whole, but you know what? It was a pretty good movie overall. I really liked it. It was entertaining, to say the least, and I feel like it honored the all of the movies. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment, and may the Force be with you.